Welcome back. Story time with Andy. We're reading The One Thing by Gary Keller. Hey guys, we're in part 3 of the story. This is called Extraordinary Results, Unlocking the Possibilities Within You. So let's read that section introduction first, and then we'll get into chapter 13. Quote, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Unquote. Will Rogers. Extraordinary results. There is a natural rhythm to our lives that becomes a simple formula for implementing the one thing and achieving extraordinary results. Purpose, priority, and productivity. Bound together, these three are forever connected and continually confirming each other's existence in our lives. Their link leads to the two areas where you'll apply the one thing. One big and one small. Your big one thing is your purpose, and your small one thing is the priority you take action on to achieve it. The most productive people start with purpose and use it like a compass. They allow purpose to be the guiding force in determining the priority that drives their actions. This is the straightest path to extraordinary results. Think of purpose, priority, and productivity as three parts of an iceberg. With typically only 1/9 of an iceberg above water, whatever you see is just the tip of everything that is there. This is exactly how productivity, priority, and purpose are related. What you see is determined by what you don't. The more productive people are, the more purpose and priority are pushing and driving them. With the additional outcome of profit, it's the same for business. What's visible to the public, productivity and profit, is always buoyed by the substance that serves as the company's foundation. Purpose and priority. All business people want productivity and profit, but too many fail to realize that the best path to attaining them is through purpose-driven priority. Purpose-driven priority. Personal productivity is the building block of all business profit. The two are inseparable. A business can't have unproductive people, yet magically still have an immensely profitable business. Great businesses are built one productive person at a time. Great businesses are built one productive person at a time. And not surprisingly, the most productive people receive the greatest rewards from their businesses. Connecting purpose, priority, and productivity determines how high above the rest successful individuals and profitable businesses rise. Understanding this at the core of producing extraordinary results. That brings us to chapter 13, which is titled, Live with Purpose. Quote, life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Unquote. George Bernard Shaw. So how do you use purpose to create an extraordinary life? Ebenezer Scrooge shows us how. Cold-hearted, penny-pinching, and greedy, a man who despised Christmas and all things that give people happiness, his last name a byword for miserliness and meanness, Ebenezer Scrooge might have been the least likely candidate to teach us anything about how to live. Yet, in Charles Dickens' 1843 classic A Christmas Carol, he does. The redemptive tale of Scrooge's transformation from stingy, callous, and unloved to considerate, caring, and beloved is one of the best examples of how our destinies are determined by our decisions, our lives shaped by our choices. Once again, fiction provides us a formula we can all follow to build an extraordinary life with extraordinary results. I'd like to beg your forgiveness. Take a little literary license and quickly retell this timeless tale to show you. One Christmas Eve, Ebenezer Scrooge is visited by the deceased spirit of Jacob Marley, his former business partner. We do not know if this is a dream or if it's real. Marley wails, I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and a hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by three spirits, one from the past, one from the present, and one from the future. Remember what has passed between us. Now, let's stop for a second and bear in mind who Scrooge is. Dickens describes him as a man whose old features are frozen by the cold within him. Tight-fisted and head down and hand to the grindstone, Scrooge pays as little as possible and keeps as much as he can. He is secretive and solitary. No one ever stops him in the streets to say hello. No one cares, for he cares for no one. He is a bitter, mean, covetous old sinner, cold to the sight, cold to the touch, and cold of the heart, with no thaw in sight. His life is a lonely existence, and the world is worse off for it. Over the course of the evening, the three spirits visit Scrooge to show him his past, present, and future. Through these visits, he sees how he became the man he is, how his life is currently going, and what will ultimately happen to him and those around him. It's a terrifying experience that leaves him visibly shaken. When he wakes the next morning, not knowing whether it was real or a dream, but giddy upon discovering no time has passed, Scrooge realizes there is still time to alter his fate. In a joyous blur, he rushes into the street and instructs the first boy he sees to go buy the biggest turkey at the market and send it anonymously to the home of his sole employee, Bob Cratchit. Upon seeing a gentleman he'd once rebuffed for pleading charity for the needy, he prays for forgiveness and promises to donate huge sums of money to the poor. Ebenezer eventually ends up at the home of his nephew, where he begs forgiveness for being such a fool for far too long and accepts an invitation to stay for holiday dinner. His nephew's wife and guests, shocked at his heartful bliss, can barely believe this is Scrooge. The next morning, Bob Cratchit, upon arriving noticeably late to work, is confronted by Scrooge. "What do you mean coming here at this time of day? I am not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer." Before this wretched news can sink in, the incredulous Cratchit hears him say, "And therefore I am about to raise your salary." Scrooge goes on to become the Cratchit's family benefactor. He finds a doctor for Tiny Tim, Cratchit's invalid son, and becomes like a second father to him. Scrooge lives out the rest of his days spending his time and money doing everything he can for others. Through this simple story, Charles Dickens shows us a simple formula for creating an extraordinary life. Live with purpose. Live by priority. Live for productivity. As I reflect on this story, I believe Dickens reveals purpose as a combination of where we're going and what's important to us. He implies that our priority is what we place the greatest importance on, and our productivity comes from the actions we take. He lays out life as a series of connected choices where our purpose sets our priority, and our priority determines the productivity our actions produce. To Dickens, our purpose determines who we are. Scrooge is transparent and easy to understand, so let's revisit A Christmas Carol through the lens of Dickens' formula. At the place we enter his life, Scrooge's purpose is clearly about money. He pursues a life either working for it or being alone with it. He cares for money more than for people and believes that money is the end by which any means are justified. Based on his purpose, his priority is straightforward, making as much money for himself as he can. Collecting coin is what matters to Scrooge. As a result, his productivity is always aimed at making money. When he takes a break from making it for fun, he counts it. Earning, netting, lending, receiving, tallying. These are the actions that fill his days, for he is greedy, selfish, and unmoved by the human condition of those around him. By Scrooge's own standards, he's highly productive in accomplishing his purpose. By anyone else's, it's simply a miserable life. This would be the end of the story were it not for the perspective provided by Ebenezer by his former partner. Jacob Marley didn't want Scrooge to reach the same dead end he had. So after the haunting, what happened to Scrooge? By Dickens' account, his purpose changed, which changed his most important priority, which changed where he focused his productivity. After Marley's intervention, Scrooge experienced the transformative power of a new purpose. So who did he become? Well, let's look. As the narrative ends, Scrooge's purpose is no longer money, but people. He now cares about people. He cares about their financial circumstances and their physical condition. He sees himself happily in relationships with others, lending a hand any way he can. He values helping people more than hoarding money and believes money is good for the good it can do. What is his priority? Where he once saved money and used people, he now uses money to save people. His overriding priority is to make as much money as he can so he can help as many as he can. His actions? He is productive throughout his days, putting every penny he can towards others. The transformation is remarkable. The message unmistakable. Who we are and where we want to go determine what we do and what we accomplish. Who we are and where we want to go determine what we do and what we accomplish. A life lived on purpose is the most powerful of all, and the happiest. Happiness on purpose. Ask enough people what they want in life, and you'll hear happiness as the overwhelming response. Although we all have a wide variety of specific answers, happiness is what we most want. Yet, it's what most of us understand the least. No matter our motivations, most of what we do in life is ultimately meant to make us happy, and yet we get it wrong. Happiness doesn't happen the way we think. To explain, I want to share an ancient tale with you. Another story. The Begging Bowl. Upon coming out of his palace one morning and encountering a beggar, a king asks, "What do you want?" The beggar laughingly says, "You ask as though you can fulfill my desire." Offended, the king replies, "Of course I can. What is it?" The beggar warns, "Think twice before you promise anything." Now, the beggar was no ordinary beggar, but the king's past life master, who had promised in their former life, "I will come to try and wake you in your next life, in our next life. This life you have missed, but I will come again to help you." The king, not recognizing his old friend, insisted, "I will fulfill anything you ask, for I am a very powerful king who can fulfill any desire." The beggar said, "It is very simple. It is a very simple desire. Can you fill this begging bowl?" "Of course," said the king, and he instructed his vizier to fill the man's begging bowl with money. The vizier did, but when the money was poured into the bowl, it disappeared. So he poured more and more, but the moment he did, it would disappear. The begging bowl remained empty. Word spread throughout the kingdom, and a huge crowd gathered. The prestige and power of the king were at stake, so he told his vizier, "If my kingdom is to be lost, I am ready to lose it. But I cannot be defeated by this beggar." He continued to empty his wealth into the bowl. Diamonds, pearls, emeralds. His treasury was becoming empty. And yet the begging bowl seemed bottomless. Everything put into it immediately disappeared. Finally, as the crowd stood in utter silence, the king dropped at the beggar's feet and admitted defeat. "You are victorious, but before you go, fulfill my curiosity. What is the secret of this begging bowl?" The beggar humbly replied, "There is no secret. It is simply made up of human desire." One of our biggest challenges is to make sure our life's purpose doesn't become a beggar's bowl, a bottomless pit of desire, continually searching for the next thing that will make us happy. That's a losing proposition. Acquiring money and obtaining things are pretty much all done for the pleasure we expect them to bring. On one hand, this actually works. Securing money or something we want can spike our happiness meter for a moment. Then it goes back down. Over the ages, our greatest minds have pondered happiness. and their conclusions are much the same. Having money and things won't automatically lead to lasting happiness. How circumstances affect us depend on how we interpret them as they relate to our life. If we lack a big picture view, we can easily fall into serial success seeking. Why? Once we get what we want, our happiness sooner or later wanes because we quickly become accustomed to what we acquire. This happens to everyone and eventually leaves us bored, seeking something new to get or do. Worse, we may not even stop or slow down to enjoy what we've got because we automatically get up and go for something else. If we're not careful, we wind up ricocheting from achieving and acquiring to acquiring and achieving without ever taking time to fully enjoy any of it. This is a good way to remain a beggar. And the day we realize this is the day our life changes forever. So how do we find enduring happiness? Happiness happens on the way to fulfillment. Happiness happens on the way to fulfillment. Dr. Martin Seligman, past president of the American Psychological Association, believes there are 5 factors that contribute to our happiness: positive emotion and pleasure, achievement, relationships, engagement, and meaning. Of these, he believes engagement and meaning are the most important. Becoming more engaged in what we do by finding ways to make our life more meaningful is the surest way to finding lasting happiness. When our daily actions fulfill a bigger purpose, the more powerful and enduring happiness can happen. Take money, for instance. Since money represents both getting something and the potential to get more, it makes for a great example. Many people not only misunderstand how we make money, but also how it makes us happy. I've taught wealth building to everyone from seasoned entrepreneurs to high school students. And whatever I ask, how much money do you want to earn, I get all kinds of answers. But usually the number is quite high. When I ask, how did you pick that number? I frequently get the familiar answer, I don't know. Then I ask, can you tell me your definition of a financially wealthy person? Invariably, I get numbers that start at $1 million and go up from there. When I ask how they arrived at this, they often say, it sounds like a lot. My response is, it is, and it isn't. It all depends on what you do with it. I believe that financially wealthy people are those who have enough money coming in without having to work or finance their purpose in life. Financially wealthy people are those who have enough money coming in without having to work to finance their purpose in life. Now, please realize that this definition presents a challenge to anyone who accepts it. To be financially wealthy, you must have a purpose in your life. In other words, without a purpose, you'll never know when you have enough money, and you can never be financially wealthy. It isn't that having more money won't make you happy. To a point, it certainly can. But then it stops. For more money to continue to motivate you will depend on why you want more. It's been said that the end shouldn't justify the means, but be careful. When achieving happiness, any end you seek will only create happiness for you through the means it takes to achieve it. Wanting more money just for the sake of getting it won't bring the happiness you seek from it. Happiness happens when you have a bigger purpose than having more fulfills, which is why we say happiness happens on the way to fulfillment. The power of purpose. Purpose is the straightest path to power and the ultimate source of personal strength of conviction, and strength to persevere. The prescription for extraordinary results is knowing what matters to you and taking daily doses of actions in alignment with it. When you have a definite purpose for your life, clarity comes faster, which leads to more conviction in your direction, which usually leads to faster decisions. When you make faster decisions, you'll often be the one who makes the first decisions and winds up with the best choices. And when you have the best choices, you have the opportunity for the best experiences. This is how knowing where you're going helps lead you to the best possible outcomes and experiences life has to offer. Purpose also helps you when things don't go your way. Life gets tough at times, and there's no way around that. Aim high enough, live long enough, and you'll encounter your share of tough times. That's okay. We all experience this. Knowing why you're doing something provides the inspiration and motivation to give the extra perspiration needed to persevere when things go south. Sticking with something long enough for success to show up is a fundamental requirement for achieving extraordinary results. Purpose provides the ultimate glue that can help you stick to the path you've set. When what you do matches your purpose, your life just feels in rhythm, and the path you beat with your feet seems to match the sound in your head and heart. Live with purpose, and don't be surprised if you actually hum more and even whistle while you work. When you ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do in my life that would mean the most to me and the world, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary, you're using the power of the one thing to bring purpose to your life. Chapter 13, Big Ideas, Summary of the Chapter. Number 1, happiness happens on the way to fulfillment. We all want to be happy, but seeking it isn't the best way to find it. The surest path to achieving lasting happiness happens when you make your life about something bigger, when you bring meaning and purpose to your everyday actions. Number 2, discover your big why. The big why. Not like the Y, but W-H-Y. Discover your purpose by asking yourself what drives you. What's the thing that gets you up in the morning and keeps you going when you're tired and worn down? I sometimes refer to this as your big why. This is why you're excited with your life. It's why you're doing what you're doing. Number 3, absent an answer, pick a direction. Purpose may sound heavy, but it doesn't have to be. Think of it as simply the one thing you want in your life to be about more than any other. Try writing down something you'd like to accomplish and then describe how you'd do it. For me, it looks like this. My purpose is to help people live their greatest life possible through my teaching, coaching, and writing. So then, what does my life look like? Teaching is my one thing and has been for almost 30 years. At first, it was teaching clients about the market and how to make great decisions. Next, it was teaching salespeople in the classroom during sales meetings and one-on-one. Later, it was teaching business classes. Then, it became teaching high performers models and strategies for high achievement. And the last 10 years, it has been teaching seminars on specific life-building principles. What I teach is what I then coach, and I supported by what I write. Pick a direction, start marching down that path, and see how you like it. Time brings clarity, and if you find you don't like it, you can always change your mind. It's your life. So that's chapter 13 from The One Thing by Gary Keller. Welcome and thank you. I really appreciate you hanging around for Storytime with Andy. What did I pick up from this chapter? Wow, there was a lot of heavy content in this chapter, and the Christmas Carol analogy was a good one. I think we all have the chance, the opportunity, and the power to change our lives and to focus on things that we really want versus the things we have to do to get where we want to go. It's not a mutually exclusive thing, but you can and do and should live up to your highest and best purpose. And so for me, that's helping people in career transition. Yeah, you can visit my website, andrewbeach.com, to learn more about products and services that I offer. And I appreciate you hanging around in our personal growth channel and chapter review of The One Thing by Gary Keller. Put a like on this video, subscribe if you so choose, and leave a comment about what you learned and perhaps another book that you'd like to read about as part of our joint growth together. So I appreciate you, and peace to your house.